Recently, David Wilcock is dead. Along with him, 13 other scientists, aerospace engineers, NASA scientists, and other researchers have either been missing or dead. What is really happening?
When the US military themselves released this footage to the public, finally everybody heaved a sigh of relief, especially the UFO researchers like David Wilcock. They finally felt vindicated that all of the research that they had done on this topic was now coming into the public domain. His endeavor was to get the truth out. What is the truth about the UFOs? What is the truth about anti-gravity propulsion? What is happening to our world spiritually? Where are we in the cosmic timeline? Is the Bible really a book about prophecies? Is it true that some of these things will come to pass? Are we living in the end times? And one of the subjects he very passionately focused on is something called as the end of the cycle solar flash.
And to discuss that today with us, we have Ranjit, who has been intensively, immersively studying on this subject for the last 10 years. Hi, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ashwini. I'm very happy to be here on your channel. So, I think today's topic is really interesting for us. You spoke about how these 13 scientists have been found either missing or dead.
Well, the twists just keep coming. 2 more people are linked to the mysterious web of dead or missing American scientists and researchers, bringing the total number to 13.
Under mysterious circumstances, along with the UFO writer, author, and researcher David Wilcock. Definitely, this is a cause for concern, because one thing I can tell you confidently is that these kind of mysterious deaths of scientists and well-known researchers was happening for a long time. And I can go back even last 30-35 years. Number of whistleblowers in government, intelligence agencies, secret projects, they have been disappearing or they have been killed under mysterious circumstances. What is surprising to me is this time around it is getting a lot of media attention. And I'll tell you why. The background for this is Trump more recently, he tweeted and said that, he wants the UFO files to be disclosed to the public. He wanted the truth to come out. And ever since then, we have been seeing these disappearances of scientists and all of this information coming to the media. And you still try to think, for a subject which is so arcane, which is so out there, people don't want to touch this subject with a 10-foot pole, and they think that this is all hogwash, it's all fraudulent. In a subject where there is no structure, nobody is systematically studying it, save a few researchers, you always tend to think, why is it now coming into the media? And the background for this is, I think at least since 2016, the Pentagon and other departments within the US government, they have been making efforts to start the disclosure process. It began with the release of a few videos of UFOs which are flying at extremely high velocities. And it was actually a drone kind of object. You can actually find that footage online. If you were to go online, it's become iconic now. So when the US military themselves released this footage to the public, finally everybody heaved a sigh of relief, especially the UFO researchers like David Wilcock. They finally felt vindicated that all of the research that they had done on this topic was now coming into the public domain.
In the mainstream.
Yeah.
What about David Wilcock? I'm very curious and also saddened by what has happened. People are speculating that it could be a murder, or there are people who are saying that it's a natural death. In fact, his own family has come out and said that there is no basis to say that he has been killed by somebody. He was going through a mental depression phase. So what is exactly happening about that?
The truth is somewhere in between, Ashwini, because, I can think of 3 possibilities straight out of the bat, but I cannot lean on any particular possibility because, again, we don't have enough data. The first possibility is that that he was in fact in possession of very exclusive...
Once again, sorry to disturb. First, I want for everybody to understand, just tell us who David Wilcock is. Let's start from who he is and then then build on his story.
Sure. Okay. So David Wilcock, I think he has been active in the alternate research circuit concerning paranormal phenomenon, UFOs, and all kinds of other subjects which are very secretive and not discussed in public and openly. He has been doing it since the heydays of YouTube. You know, YouTube began sometime in 2005 or 2006. Correct me if I am wrong. But since the heydays of YouTube, his videos used to go viral even back in the day. You know, when I started researching this subject in the early 2000s, this was a great revelation. I started seeing that David Wilcock was very well read, very well studied. He had read a number of books. He had also, in his early life, he had, witnessed certain strange phenomenon. He had through channeling and other methods, he had encountered certain beings in his dreams. He made certain extraordinary claims, none of which could be verified, of course, but obviously he was very confidently talking about it. And nonetheless, some of the stuff that he was talking back then made a lot of sense. They're talking about how the secretive world of black budget projects work. What is the US government trying to do since the Roswell crash? It all
What is
began.
Roswell crash?
Okay, that's a great question. So, I don't know. I think most people already know about this today, but in 1947, there was a UFO that crashed into an area of New Mexico called Roswell. And that area was also housing some of the nuclear armaments and nuclear missile silos back then. So it was very strange that just after the Second World War, 2 years into it, we had a UFO crash. And this is what happens. On day one, when the crash happens, the military very excitedly announces in the newspapers that they have recovered some kind of an alien craft which has crashed into a farmer's field in Roswell, New Mexico. So everybody gets excited. But the very next day, what you will see utterly shocks you. The very same US military backtracks on its story and says, you know what? There was no such crash that happened. It was a routine weather balloon that crashed into the field, and the debris and the ruins are actually reflective of a weather balloon, and it had nothing to do with this UFO crash. They completely hushed it up back then. But then what happens is, for the alternate UFO researchers like David Wilcock, there's Linda Moulton Howe, there are many stalwarts in this field who have done actually a very salutary effort to bring the truth out. So through whistleblower testimonies, so if you ask me who a whistleblower is, I can define people who have worked deep inside the US government, in intelligence agencies, within secretive, special access projects, black budget projects. What are black budget projects? Projects which receive funding outside the book of the Congress or the Parliament. So it is not on the accounting books of the government, it is off it. So continuing on the David Wilcock paradigm, he came onto the scene because he also made some claims back then that he had striking resemblances to Edgar Casey, that he probably had some recollection of his previous life.
So he was saying that he was a reincarnation of Edgar Casey.
He actually
Who is
believed
Edgar
that.
Casey?
Okay, now we have to keep digging into the proverbial rabbit hole, Ashwini. So Edgar Casey was a very famous psychic who actually lived between the late 1800s. I think he died in 1940, roughly thereabouts. And he rose to fame because I think his story is extremely fascinating for the audience. You won't believe how Edgar Casey came into fame. He had a speaking disability. He actually could not speak properly. And what he did was, he had enormous clarity of thought. He walked up to another psychic. At that time, he was not a psychic as a
He had not
profession.
realized.
He had not realized he is one,
was
but
not
he had
aware.
extreme clarity on how to overcome his condition.
Wow.
He walks up to another psychic in America, writes on a sheet of paper that he needs to be put through a hypnosis process, wherein he will start speaking about certain things, and then he will, in that hypnotic state, he will give the solution as to how to, overcome his condition.
Wow.
Yeah, this is actually documented history. I'm not making this up. Look this up.
Can we Google it and we will find it?
Yeah, you should be able to Google it up.
Okay, great.
I might, you may need to polish the edges of what I have said just now. But
the core is correct.
Yeah, this is actually in his biography also.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
So thereafter, so he regains his speech. There is some, obviously the channel, the medium that walked into his spirit or gave him instructions was then followed, and then he gets his senses back. Now thereafter, it doesn't stop there. You know, he gets this huge revelations. What used to happen was, he used to go into a deep trance. He would have a sofa like this at home. He would go into sleep mode. Basically, he's sleeping, but in his sleep, he would go into a deep trance, an extreme alpha relaxed state of mind, where obviously he would start speaking from his inner spirit or inner voice, you know, kind of a channel, if you can think of it that way. So, and he started giving predictions about the future. First, he gave predictions about somebody who was his next door neighbor, somebody who were well-wishers in the family.
So
those predictions started coming true. And people said, wow, this guy has the ability to prophesize. They started giving it a Christian touch and biblical touch. So sure enough, they also realized that he had tremendous healing abilities. In his sleep, he would give a solution to a particular bodily ailment. He would tell you where the ailment was in your body, and he would give the solution and it would work. So he actually rose to fame as an alternate healer back in the day.
So he's known as an alternate healer.
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously a prophet also, because he could predict a number of things. In fact, one of his famous predictions is obviously about the rediscovery of Atlantis in late 1960s. And sure enough, in 1969,
What is this rediscovery of Atlantis? What is Atlantis?
Now we have to go deep into the rabbit hole. But yeah, I mean, everybody knows about the mythical continent of Atlantis.
We have
the island.
Idea.
Yeah.
But what is it that you are referring to?
So I'm referring to the very same mythical island which existed, supposedly 10 to 11,000 years ago.
Where does it exist? I mean,
the Greeks said that it was obviously lying beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and what mainstream researchers say is that either it did not exist and it was all figment of the Greek imagination, or there was more truth to it. In fact, it was an island, a sizable island in the Atlantic Ocean between the North American and European continents. So what happens with Atlantis ultimately is that Plato, he refers to it, Aristotle, they write about it. They say that, this existed about 10,000 years ago, about 9,000 years ago, before the time of Aristotle and those Greek stalwarts. And he also says that in one day and night, the continent of Atlantis went below the waters and sunk.
correct. This is what I have heard. Yeah.
Yes. And it is that the people of Atlantis possessed extremely advanced technology. And this also, by the way, if you go back and look at all the older videos of David Wilcock, he speaks extensively about Atlantis. In fact, he believes that in some of his previous incarnations, if you believe in the cycle of reincarnation, in his previous life, he believed that he was descended from Atlantis and whatnot, that in a previous life, he had experienced it, and he had that kind of an intuitive sense about it.
So what did Edgar Cayce reveal about the Atlantis? What was his work on that?
So Edgar Cayce also, through his psychic channeling, tried to go deep into the Atlantis subject. He prophesied that it will be rediscovered in the late 1960s. In 1969, the deep sea divers were diving off the coast of the Bahamas in the Caribbean, right? And lo and behold, that is off the coast of Cuba, just for your reference. And lo and behold, these divers actually discovered fully, artificial roads, which were built using large, slabs of stone, leveled properly, which showed intelligent design and artificial intervention. Nothing like a natural formation. It was so obvious to everybody that it was a absolutely artificial road construction that was done. So they called it the Bimini Road. The Bimini Road became legendary in alternate circles because that was the smoking gun for the existence of Atlantis and Atlantis ruins deep inside the water, right?
Okay. So what happened to Edgar Casey now? He became an alternate healer.
Yeah,
was
he
a
made a number of
prophet,
predictions,
and,
yes.
And then, how long did he live and what happened to him?
I think I'll tell you, in his obviously he enjoyed a lot of success in his middle life. He rose to fame, he became a celebrity. I think one of the things he wrongly did, and I have read some excerpts from his life, he got a vision in 1927 or 1928, or maybe about 6 months before the Great Depression, the greatest stock market crash of 1929, what we today call as the Great Depression. He had a vision about it at least 8 months to an year before it actually happened through his psychic channeling. And because of that, he suddenly got a desire to profit from it.
Okay.
He thought to himself that this is a great opportunity for him to take positions in the American stock market to directly profit from it.
Okay.
Now, what happens is, and this is extremely relatable for everybody who has invested in the stock market, you take up that position, the market starts going up. I think the crash happened sometime in September of 1929, but he had taken up positions way back in a few months ago, and then the market started going up. And you need to understand the context of that. All the stocks were going up despite corporate earnings being
Going
low,
down.
which is always the first sign of a market crash. In fact, many people say now we are here in 2026 that similar conditions have already been created in worldwide stock markets, including the Dow Jones, Nasdaq, Indian stock market. Corporate earnings are actually lagging,
Going down, but
but the people are taking the stock up. Right? It could be AI related stocks. And you know the speculative bubble around the AI stocks, right? We have heard about it that artificial intelligence stocks are overvalued because they are not able to produce any revenues. There's a lot of money being poured into data centers to advance the research of AI, to create smarter language models and whatnot. But honest to God, there isn't much of revenue. And what you see is between the FANG companies, the top 5 or 6 companies that occupy 35% of the American stock exchange, right?
what happened to Edgar Casey?
So Edgar Casey took these bets, and sure enough, the market started going. So he then withdrew those bets, thinking the vision he had was wrong. He made a loss, and this is the most surreal moment when a really accomplished psychic prophet like Edgar Casey could not profit from his own prediction. He thought that the market is going up and his prediction did not have any value. So he just sold everything off.
So was
And
it a significant amount for him?
it was a decent amount of money, is what I hear. And then later on, the actual market crash happened, wherein he was actually vindicated.
Proven right.
Right. So that was actually a story where I think he kind of understood there are limits to what he can do through channeling. And there are obviously, he also in his wisdom believed that there are spiritual rules governing his work. His work
Yes, for others, not for
is
yourself.
exactly has to benefit other people.
The moment
So
you start using it for yourself,
for your self benefit, it will turn on you.
Correct.
So this is the story. So coming back to the whole David Wilcock subject, you will realize that he made these claims and then he rose to fame because he wrote a number of books. Obviously, he was like a walking encyclopedia of knowledge. He had read all of the ancient books and some of the more famous authors. And he started doing podcasts. He started his own YouTube channel. He created his own website called divinecosmos.com, wherein he used to do regular shows and all of that. He used to invite guests from the alternate realm, people who are whistleblowers. And much later, because of the knowledge, the fame that he was able to garner, he became a guest in the Ancient Aliens show that ran on the History
The
Channel.
one where Praveen Mohan has
Also been featured. In fact, there are a number of alternate researchers have been featured on that channel prominently, like Eric von Daniken.
When we see DNA evidence in the hair of something that doesn't match up with what we would expect to be. Old Gaelic DNA mixed with Chinese DNA and blonde hair. The storylines don't add up unless we start to invoke the idea of abduction.
There are many others also, but it ran successfully for many seasons. I think it ran till 15 seasons. I'm not sure if it is still running, but it's one of the most successful shows on History Channel. And David Wilcock really made his mark there. I think he was really at his peak. And then his fall started. And almost he did not know that this was happening.
So basically, David Wilcock believed that he was a reincarnation of Edgar Casey.
Yeah,
that's what he claimed.
He made his claim, but later on he underplayed it. Because once David Wilcock started getting into television, mainstream internet audiences started following him, he kind of downplayed some of the stuff that he had said earlier. He did not focus too heavily on that. Okay. His endeavor was to get the truth out. What is the truth about the UFOs? What is the truth about anti-gravity propulsion? What is happening to our world spiritually? Where are we in the cosmic timeline? Is the Bible really a book about prophecies? Is it true that some of these things will come to pass? Are we living in the end times? And one of the subjects he very passionately focused on is something called as the end of the cycle solar flash, right? In fact, there are a number of remote viewers, Ashwini. I think most people don't know the subject of remote viewing. Remote viewing is a very important art and science where, people are able to use their subconscious mind to actually see certain places which are beyond their visual purview. They are able to go into that subconscious state and they are able to, see certain places, events happening either in the future or in the past. And the best part is they are all blindfolded experiments in the sense that the person who is doing the remote viewing doesn't know what the target is. The only brief that is given to him is the target has been set, now start your remote viewing. That is how you make a remote viewing experiment unbiased. Because if you get to know about the target, your logical mind, your emotional mind will flood in and will corrupt that entire process, and you will start using your imagination more than the subconscious mind, right, to know about the target. So that is how it is achieved. So there is one very famous remote viewer called Major Ed Dames.
Okay.
Major Ed Dames, he is a military grade remote viewer. He is not one of those phonies. So please don't take him like that. He has worked extensively in the US military as an official remote viewer. Okay. I have actually sat through some of his early videos on remote viewing. In fact, there is one old video going back to 2010 or 2011 where Major Ed Dames gives a practical class lesson on how to do remote viewing. Any person can do remote viewing. It doesn't take any specialized skill. With little bit of training, orientation, it can be done by anybody. But then a military grade remote viewer obviously has channeled his mind. In fact, Major Ed Dames, he has also spoken about the fact that he extensively meditates and keeps himself calm through the session so that he's able to get the most accurate information out. Mm-hmm. So Major Ed Dames, in his videos on YouTube, had made a prediction that around about the time between 2025 and 2030, the sun, right, as you know, it goes through solar cycles, 11-year cycles, and there's a 400-year cycle that is also documented in the Mayan calendar. So, I mean, there's also that connection coming in. And he believed that the sun was due to give out an X-class solar flare. Mm-hmm. An X-class solar flare is the most severe form of solar flare, where it lets out all these charged ionized electrons and protons and neutron particles, obviously towards the Earth and other planets in space, right? And these particles, what happens is that kind of an explosion of solar energy will disrupt the electrical grid on Earth. All countries will be deprived of electricity for a few years. It will just roast all of your electrical equipment. Now, how do I know that this happens?
What happens to humans?
They say that it is literally the end of a cycle, that most humans will not survive that kind of a solar flash event because that it will be so hot that literally people will die, and only people who actually take refuge in caves and underground caverns in deep underground bases, which we can obviously talk about in another episode. Only such people can survive a solar flash. Or if David Wilcock puts it, if you are spiritually inclined and if you've been doing a lot of soul work and meditative work, you obviously would not be affected by the charged particles of the solar flash. He actually drew upon Iranian texts, Indian texts. He did a multidisciplinary cross-cultural approach to understand if the solar flash was a phenomenon that was recorded in the past. Now, one anecdotal information I can give you, Ashwini, is that in 1859, I don't know if you know this, there's something called as the Carrington event.
1859 Carrington event. What is that?
So the Carrington event is very interesting. So there was this kind of a solar flash that apparently happened. It was, I think, an M-class solar flare. And back then we had telegraph technology. Okay, we did not have very advanced technology back then. So it basically roasted and burnt out all the telegraph lines.
Okay.
So, and obviously disrupted the electrical grid. One more incident which is very famous is the blackout, which happened in Canada. We had a similar extremely large solar flare that hit the earth on the Canadian side, and poor Canadians, they had to take the brunt of it. But this blackout has been documented in history as a legitimate solar flare incident. There is enough evidence in the modern era that this kind of a solar flash is possible, and in extreme cases, it can end civilization also. That is what David Wilcock, it has been the core part of his research, that when will this event happen, and he believed in his wisdom that this would usher in a golden age, that we were obviously going from Kali Yuga. In fact, he made a lot of reference to Hindu texts. He was a strong believer that we were in the Kali Yuga and in the transition period going into the Satya Yuga, and he believed that the golden age would come about, and that was
how
his
did
thesis.
his fall begin? I want to know if you can just briefly tell me about what exactly happened and how did his fall begin, and what are the chain of incidents that have brought him here?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. So, around about the time when he was making these appearances in Ancient Aliens, TV episodes, he actually befriended a person who claimed to be a whistleblower from the secret space program. So, a quick background on what the secret space program is. See, you need to understand that, Ashwini, outside the world of technology which is being researched by academia and universities, there is a whole black world where governments across the world, they get the best of their best scientists to work on exotic technology. One of these technologies is anti-gravity, if I can talk about it.
Yes, I have heard of that.
Right? Anti-gravity is basically, they believe that there's the Townsend effect, there is Einstein-Rosen bridge. There's the Brown and Paulson effect, which have been documented over the years. These are some of the phenomena in physics that can give some foundation for anti-gravity. So, but then the research was never continued in its fullest. Some early scientists in the 1900s documented some of this, but what they were basically hypothesizing is that it is possible to get 100, or should I say 2x the energy that you put into a system. So let's say, there is a system, there is an input, there is an output. So if you put X amount of energy, it's possible to get 2x energy here, which is almost 100% appreciation, right? In terms of energy production. So that is what anti-gravity, it's called over unity energy.
How is it working now?
I don't know the exact mechanics because, again, I don't want to make extraordinary claims of my understanding of physics. But anti-gravity is a subject.
So basically they are trying to make it superior than what it currently is.
So exactly, if you see the conventional forms of energy, today we have nuclear energy, there are nuclear reactors that can propel aircraft. There is obviously, you have seen these V2 rockets, you have seen some very advanced cryogenic engines which are being manufactured that take the rockets to space, and they launch the satellites. Because they are able to escape Earth's gravity, like 9.8 kilometers per second. They are able to go faster than that speed, and hence they are able to escape Earth's gravity, right? So to that extent, the most powerful engine can take a rocket to space, or the most powerful engines, for example, the jet engine, the most important invention in the 20th century, is what has helped people to fly from one place to the other, right? After the Wright brothers discovered flight in 1903, thereafter, a lot of advancements have happened in aviation technology. Much of the aviation technology today is based on the Bernoulli theorem in terms of aerodynamics, that if you are able to use air pressure to your advantage above and below the wings, and then it gives a lift after a certain speed, it gives you a certain lift, and that lift is enough to take the aircraft into the air. Roughly speaking, I mean, I'm not a physics professor, so I cannot articulate it in very technical terms, but broadly this is most people's common understanding of how flying works. But what if I tell you, Ashwini, that anti-gravity technology is such that you don't need a runway. You don't need aircraft to fly on a runway to obtain speed. What if aircrafts could go at very high speeds in our atmosphere? Anywhere from 20 to 50,000 miles per hour. Even peak velocities of UFOs, which have been documented over the years, flying in the skies worldwide, they are flying at insane velocities. So now the next question is, are they defying the laws of physics? Or are they in possession of technology which is so advanced it feels like magic? In fact, there is a segment within the Area 51, which is the famed secret lab in the Nevada desert, where they usually use the term called WSFM. Weird science freaking magic. That is the term used by the military people themselves. In fact, much of the aircraft that they have recovered, all these UFOs that have crashed into Roswell and many other places also in the last 50, 60 years, what they have found is they are still not able to understand the technology which is driving these UFOs. Some of these examples will blow your mind. One particular UFO was found to be using something called, and wait for it, it's called element 115.
What is that?
At the time, now element 115 is part of the periodic table. It's called unum pentium.
Unum pentium.
Okay, you can look this up. But not so long ago, when Bob Lazar came out in 1989, he was one of the most famous whistleblowers out of Area 51. He said he was a physicist who worked in Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Los Alamos Laboratory, and later he was transferred to Area 51 to work on extremely secretive UFO technology. Okay. And the technology he came across from the recovered aircraft was that they were using something called as a element 115, which would give it an anti-gravity lift, defying gravity and to be able to accelerate effortlessly.
Okay.
This is one form of anti-gravity technology. Another is something called as extracting zero-point energy from the ether or from the space around us. The assumption behind this technology, Ashwini, is that there is infinite amounts of zero-point energy available. So they have over the years found aircraft which were tapping into zero-point energy and propelling the aircraft. This is another form of technology. Now, the third type of technology which they found, which is absolutely mind-blowing, is in one particular craft, they found that there were optical fiber waveguides, and there were these, these what you call as sensors, which were directly plugged into the brains, or not just as an outer, contraption, which would be attached to the minds of the pilots. There was no engine in the aircraft. This is what the US military has found in some aircraft. So then they had to extrapolate and say the minds of the pilots
were running the
aircraft. This is absolutely mind-blowing and shocking. This just goes to show that there are creatures and alien beings.
Can I verify that?
You can verify this, but then even a Google search will not give you proper information, Ashwini, on this particular subject, because you have to really dig deep. Maybe if you go to ChatGPT deep research, it might get some information on this. But based on all the whistleblower testimony I have gathered over the years and listened to them speak, the whistleblowers themselves have spoken about how these alien beings, the gray alien beings, their minds were so amplified that they could drive the craft. So finally what it's happening is, it is mind power or will over matter. Right? That no convention. So this is the problem that today the industrial complex, the military industrial complex is facing. On the one hand, you have brick and mortar technology, which I spoke about. I gave you a few examples of how it may work. Then there is one more technology called warp drive, which basically tries to, go through hyperspace, reducing the distance between 2 points by going in a higher dimension travel. There are a number of these
So
technologies.
these basically all these technologies which look alien to us, which look like it will not happen, are called as black budget projects. Which is
Yeah,
kind
they are
of-
off the books of the parliament
okay,
or
fair
the
enough.
Senate.
We'll come back to what happened to
David Wilcock. So that's a great thing, right? So around about this time, he developed a friendship with this whistleblower called Corey Good.
Corey Good was
Was a
working on
member-
one of this. Corey Good was working on one of these projects that you just mentioned.
So Corey Good, when he first came onto the scene as a whistleblower through Gaia TV and
Okay, so Corey, when we last taped the show, you hadn't seen Law of One at all. Has that changed since then?
Yes, actually, I was able to read the first book of The Law of One. I only read it once, and there's a lot to retain, so I'm going to read it.
many other productions, he made some extraordinary claims. He said that there is an entire breakaway civilization which has been engineered by the US government. What do the breakaway civilizations, what is the definition of a breakaway civilization? So, I think it was, scientists have defined, what is the current maturity of a civilization. They call it type 1, type 2, type 3 civilizations. We are type 0. So type 1 civilization is able to tap free energy and completely revolutionize the world and all of that. So he said that the US government had a number of deep underground military bases within the United States and even abroad. These were all connected through a worldwide network of magnetic levitation trains that can travel at extremely high speeds. And maglev trains are available in Japan, China, in many places today. Obviously, I think the
They're
speed
connected, as in you're saying that underground there is a
deep
train.
underground, several miles below the Earth's surface, Ashwini, they have created a network of maglev trains which are
So it's
interconnecting
connecting
deep underground military bases.
deep underground military bases only in America or across the world.
It's across the world, as far as my research and knowledge goes on this
And
subject.
can I verify this?
A Google search will probably give you a very sanitized, fact-checked answer, because remember, Google again relies on the
catering
same
to
body
the-
of information that regular people are privy through the media. But I think today media is slowly coming out with drip feeding some of these truths to the masses. I think there's a lot of articles that Guardian and some of the other publications have
fair.
been
So
talking about it. Corey Good.
So okay.
So,
So Corey Good, you are saying, was working on one of these projects.
Corey Good claimed that he was a member of a secret space program called 20 and Back.
Okay.
Now, the most shocking part of 20 and Back is the nature of the program itself. 20 and Back means that a 16-year-old can be taken from his living room just like this, and he can be age regressed in the sense that
He'll become 5-year-old.
no, let me rephrase this properly. A 16-year-old was picked up to basically be part of missions to the moon, Mars, and other planets through extremely fast anti-gravity propulsion aircraft. Okay? He spent 10 years in the secret space program. Now, he's not the only one who has claimed that he's part of 20
Basically, at the
and
age of
Back.
16, he was kind
Taken
of
through-
kidnapped,
He was kidnapped. He's literally kidnapped from his bedroom.
and then sent
He was
to,
taken to Mars and the moon, where he was given extensive training. Basically, why he was identified was apparently, now again, because whatever later information about Corey Good compromises all his narratives, because he then at a later date he completely calls out and says that he was making up an elaborate cock and bull story. And this is where plausible deniability comes in. All these people, whatever stories they are communicating, they will not give you proof in most respects, right? You just have to take their claims or take their word for it.
yeah.
Until and unless now today we are able to talk about UFOs because the US government themselves have come out with this information. So, it's not like we have to prove our credentials. We are talking about things which are already in the media, like David Wilcock or Corey Good. The thing about Corey Good is, he's an intuitive empath, a person who who had telepathic powers, who could communicate to other alien beings easily. He was extremely emotionally stable person. That's what he claimed. If you go back to all of the older videos of Corey Good, that's what he will say. I'm an extremely emotionally stable person. And he made a claim that most human beings are not in a position to communicate with alien beings for one important reason. He says human beings are very violent creatures, extremely emotionally volatile. And he made a claim that if a person is emotionally volatile, the alien beings will go far, far away from such people. They will not make contact with such people. So you have to be a special kind of intuitive, empathetic kind of person who doesn't get scared. Suppose, magically, Ashwini, if some person, materialized right in front of you, an alien being, you know what happens to a regular human being?
Heart attack.
Heart attack. Because the shock of seeing a person materialize right in front of you is so big that the person will die of a heart attack.
Correct.
But if you are an intuitive empath, if you are able to calm yourself down through meditation and spiritual practices, or maybe you are born that way, whatever be the reason, you are no longer phased emotionally by everything happening around you.
Correct.
You reach that emotional state. I mean, what our ancient Hindu yogis would have been proud of in that sense.
Okay, so what happened to that guy, 16-year-old guy who was kidnapped?
So what we call as age regression, Ashwini, is after 10 years, he was returned back to his bedroom exactly at the age of 16. For Corey Good, he had experienced 10 years.
Corey Good was the person who was taken.
Yes. Corey Good had experienced 10 years of his life in the secret space program, only to be brought back exactly at the same moment where he was kidnapped.
Year, or had 10 years passed here also?
No, 10 years had not passed in our reality. So it was more like a projection where he, if you can think of it in
Interstellar.
it's a technology which these guys have been extensively using.
Interstellar kind of a movie where he comes back.
It is not exactly. No, it is not that. It is not that. Because see, in Interstellar movie, they are talking about space travel. That time scales are different on Earth and other planets.
Goes out and comes back at the same age, and while his daughter has become aged.
That is. But in that case, the time on Earth has run out very quickly.
So the time.
That's why there is no comparison with the interstellar phenomenon.
So how many years have passed here then on Earth?
For him, not a minute had passed on Earth. Where in his bedroom in the US.
Hibernation was the Earth on hibernation according to him then.
No. So basically, I don't know what technology they are using because I don't have the language to describe. They have projected him into maybe another timeline. You can think of it that way, a parallel timeline, where obviously he experienced 10 years and then brought back to this timeline. That could be one explanation. That if you can then think that in our universe, it's a multiverse, that there are different timelines on which the secret space program currently has the stranglehold over our reality. And they are using this exotic technology to bring certain extremely telepathic, gifted kids onto this project to make use of their abilities to communicate with aliens.
Okay.
So this was the claim. In his experience, he said he had contacted reptilians. He had met a number of different alien species on the moon. Apparently, the US built out very big bases on the moon in the last 30-40 years. And the US had the ability to land people and safely take them back to the Earth. And he said that all of this is being done in secrecy, whereas in the public domain, organizations like NASA will say that we are still trying to send people to Mars. This is where there's a cognitive dissonance, Ashwini. On the one hand, mainstream organizations like NASA will tell you that, it's so difficult to travel in space. There are a number of constraints. You have to wear a space suit to pressurize your body to ensure that you don't rupture your nerves, because they believe that the human body is designed to be within the planet. Once you go outside the planet in a vacuum, the pressure situation, atmospheric pressure, everything is different. So you need a space suit and all of that. So whereas, you should see Corey Good interview. In one of his interviews, he'll say he was just wearing a regular shirt and pant, and that was enough to keep his body pressurized, and he wouldn't experience any dissonance there, bodily or mental. This is the advancement in technology that they have achieved in secret black budget projects, which is unbeknownst to much of humanity. Much of humanity today this is what I call as the breakaway civilization. that a segment of the US government has broken away from the population. In fact, they say, in fact, Corey Good spoke about colonies on Mars, colonies on the moon. That Mars, although the surface is uninhabitable, there is a segment where if you go deep underground, people can survive within Mars. So this is the extent to which he gave a description of what he had encountered. He spoke about the conspiracy surrounding secret space program, that many people within secret space program like him were trying to come out and tell the truth to the public. So this is the information he had given out to David Wilcock. David Wilcock took his word for it. He had no reason to doubt the efficacy of this information or the correctness of this information. And then what happened is David Wilcock started going, toe to toe with this guy in every conference. He would drag him. These guys would, talk like they're like tag team or something. They would keep disclosing much of the information from whistleblowers. At last, I think until one fine day when Corey Good was asked to testify under oath that all this information was correct in a court of law, he completely denied everything. He said, all this is fictional. I might be written. I declare that all this is a matter of fiction. None of this is real. And that was the point where David Wilcock's, bad time started. Because he had based his entire credibility and trust on the information given by Corey Good. And the moment Corey Good let him down, obviously, David Wilcock was ridiculed. He was, in many ways, what happens.
But why? I think it's even credibility loss for Corey Good also when he does something.
But this is the thing. Corey Good, although he was a public figure for quite some time, you can go back to some of the older videos. Even now, he does podcasts on YouTube.
But who will trust him if he can go back?
See, basically, in final analysis, I feel he was a deep state operative who was sent as a Trojan horse to hijack the life of David Wilcock and bring him to disrepute. So this is how the deep state systematically destroys the reputation of a celebrity like David Wilcock, turns him into dust in no time. Next thing you know, he experienced a divorce, he had a rough personal life, obviously he had financial obligations, obviously this is something that is recorded just before his death, that he was deep in debt, his family also admits it. He was going through a lot. But remember this, sometimes it's very hard for us regular people to understand what is happening to them. But if you look at the testimony of even Amy Eskridge, the lady who ran the Anti-Gravity Institute, I think out of Alabama, she was also talking about how she was being systematically targeted by intelligence agencies because she was openly talking about anti-gravity technology in conferences. She was making presentations. She was talking about how they were trying to replicate the results of their experiments with other scientists so that they can get peer review and validation. Once there is a peer review and it gets validated by other scientists, then it becomes accepted theory. This is how the scientific world works. And Amy Eskridge talked about the personal attacks that were being done. She was being followed regularly by cooks and operatives and intelligence agents and
she's also one of the person who
black
is dead right
unmarked cars.
She's also one of the persons who is dead right now.
One of the 13 people who found their death. And
how did that happen?
And I would encourage the audience, Ashwini, to please go and listen to Amy Eskridge's videos which are put up on YouTube. But basically, she talked about the extensive harassment being done by these operatives who were targeting her. In fact, at one point, she showed her skin. It's live on camera. Her skin had burnt out through extreme microwave radiation. She's saying these kind of weapons are being used on her to target her for coming out. So this is how the deep state maintains secrecy and compartmentalization. They do not want scientists and their employees who are working in special access projects to come to the public and start discussing, because this is all part of national security, one. And two, they have taken an oath of secrecy that they will not reveal all this information.
No, but why do they start revealing then if they have taken an oath of secrecy?
Okay, excellent question, right? Technically, you're right. So most scientists who are sworn to secrecy, they usually take these secrets to their deathbed. Literally,
Exactly,
they like you. Yeah. You will not come to know that they were actually working in a secret project till somebody tells them quietly that after their death that they were indeed working in that project. But there are some people who are working in these projects who feel that whatever the US government is doing in these projects is unethical or abnormal or has a chance to harm humanity. They obviously they can't keep quiet and just be okay with it. Their conscience pricks them. They want to come out and
So
tell the
they
truth to the
become
world.
whistleblowers.
They become whistleblowers. And the concept of whistleblowing works like this, Ashwini. People who want to save themselves from the harassment and attacks of the secret government, they have to come out in the public and openly tell that, tomorrow if somebody kills me, it's not because I will not ever commit suicide. I love my life way too much. I will not do anything like this, right? And not only that, they have to come out and give out this information publicly. Once it becomes public, the threat will go out, because whatever they were trying to hide is now known to everybody. By killing her, you are making a martyr out of that person. It becomes so obvious that all of the things that person said is true, because he or she has been killed for the very same reason that they claimed. That is, they were in knowledge of all these technologies.
Correct. And I heard, I read that when people are dead, they don't even take their phones, they leave their wallets, everything. Is it because they don't want to get tracked, and yet they still get tracked and they're hunted down?
It's very tough for me to sit and speculate in terms of why they might leave their belongings behind. One rational thought is that they do not want their family to be affected or involved in any way. One. So they want to keep their family out of this circus. One. Two, when they decide to walk out of their house, like how Colonel McCasland, he just walked out of his house one day. He didn't take any of his belongings, took a bag, some cooling glasses, a cap and shoes, and he just went away and never to be found, right? That's what happened to him. He's missing.
Currently.
It's possible. Now again, there are many theories. Some people say that these people are actually not dead at all. That they have been actually given new identities, and they've been asked to shut up about this, and they have been given a new life to start with. In some cases, people are able to fake their deaths and disappearances. This is also possible technically, wherein if you have the government backing you on this, they can always create a story. Even David Wilcock, they say, even Kerry Cassidy, who is one of the more famous UFO researchers, she has also made a claim on Twitter that David Wilcock, after all, might have faked his death because he felt that before people could go after him, he wanted to basically go out of public glare and start a new life. And sometimes the elites, they are fully capable of doing this. They can start a new life. Maybe they go through surgery, they change their appearance, or they go off to another distant country like Australia and start a new life. I mean, nobody can vouch.
By the government to get their passports and...
Yeah, all of that. If you have the government backing you for faking your death, yes. Otherwise, you are in trouble. So, but in case of McCasland, that could be one possibility, like I said. Another could be that he has made his way out of the country. Possible. Because within the United States, if he is being hunted, he'll go to another country, in a friendly country where he can live off and start a new life. So there are a number of possibilities. We don't know exactly the truth. In some cases, they say the bodies were found. In some cases, they say people are missing. This is where things can get a little murky, actually. The truth always is somewhere in between. I would ask the audience to do their own research on this subject.
Okay, thank you so much for kind of enlightening us with all the things that is happening. I mean, today, I'm not really in my senses because whatever we discussed looks too out of the blue, too outlandish. But as his wife, I have always seen that whatever my husband said, I always ignored it, thinking that it looks too outlandish. It feels too outlandish for a person who is so much rooted in her own history, because my focus has always been the Indian history. So it really felt most of the time so outlandish, only for me to eventually find out that whatever he said is coming out in the open and people are talking about it. Eventually, it kind of, whatever he said kind of catches up. Even now when I'm discussing all this, it does still feel, can this happen? Is it possible? Kind of a feeling to me. So if that is the feeling that you are living with, or if that is a feeling that you are currently having, I would please ask you to go ahead and do your own research and see if you can make sense out of what really has happened or we have spoken today. Anyway, whatever thoughts you may have, kindly comment, so that I would also like to read what are your thoughts on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.